that is the end of the testimony by the court officer who, again, had direct interaction with Shanda Vander Ark. Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Sam Bassett. Sam, thank you so much for being on with me. For viewers who are just joining us, let's get everyone up to speed. This is a new trial request by Shanda Vander Ark, who has been sentenced to life without parole. And long story short, she asked and filed with the court a motion for a new trial based on her competency. That was denied, but the judge said that he saw there was enough for an evidentiary hearing called a Ginther hearing for ineffective assistance of counsel. So that's what all of this content is about. Tell me, in doing an ineffective assistance of counsel claim, what is the defense through these witnesses trying to show?
Well, I think the defense is trying to show that she was not competent, was having mental issues, and perhaps they will argue that the lawyer should have brought that to the judge's attention for an interim examination of some sort. I think that the state is trying to rebut this by showing there was no explicit evidence by anybody who was with her in the jail cell and the social worker who dealt with her that she was not understanding things, she was not able to respond. So it's kind of a grasp a little bit by her current defense attorney, but that's what he's trying to explore and show. I believe that the lawyer should have done more to deal with her mental health issues as she was refusing to go into the courtroom during the trial.
And does it take it over that line, in your opinion, when you hear testimony like from this court officer who testified, number one, that the defendant said she would attempt to run if she was brought up in court, and number two, this officer reported Vander Ark suicidal. Are those things in and of themselves enough to agree that the competency mental part was significant?
I think it's an indicator, but really the most powerful testimony or analysis would be from a mental health professional. You don't know if she's competent and being manipulative, or if it's a sign of a psychosis or some other mental illness that would probably render her incompetent. I think that the behavioral things that the lay witnesses are testifying about are not as effective as perhaps the testimony of a mental health worker.
All right, if you would, Sam, stand by for more of your expertise. Court TV is covering a few different hearings like this where they are seeking a new trial. So we are going to bring you more testimony again from Shanda Vander Ark's hearing. Don't go anywhere. Court TV Live. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Sam Bassett, the end of that witness, Sam. And let me ask you this, during the trial that so many of us watched on pins and needles because of all the egregious things that she did to her own 15-year-old son, there was a viewer commentary about, for instance, not believing her when she was throwing up on the stand when she was testifying and showing a picture of her son who died, and not believing her version, her story, just much like the jury didn't. What do you think as you're looking at those behaviors and now thinking about it from the lens of, could she have in fact had competency issues that were not taken into account by her counsel?
Well, I think that's why the judge is having this hearing. He's being careful to establish as many facts on the record and arguments on both sides on this issue. And I think that the conduct between her and her attorney in the holding areas is very persuasive, that she seemed to be understanding what was going on, and there were no major issues, at least outwardly, between her and the lawyer, and he was doing everything he could to represent her. So this is a careful judge letting the record be developed to protect the record for appeal, I'm sure.
Which is what I would do as well. I think it's very smart by the judge. But I also want to add to that, it's very difficult, I think, in the ones that we watch, to really meet the standard, meet the burden, to be able to say, yes, there were competency issues, there was ineffective assistance of counsel because they didn't do what they needed to do in respect to that. That's a high burden. How difficult or how often do you see a party prevail on this when they've been convicted, life in prison without parole, and now want a new trial?
ineffective assistance is brought up somewhat frequently in serious cases with long sentences as kind of the last issue to try to get a new trial on. It's a high standard. You can't question strategy decisions of the lawyer. The counsel's performance has to be so deficient that it is likely that a different outcome would have occurred but for the deficient performance of counsel. Classic example in Texas was years ago, a lawyer slept through parts of a capital murder trial. And ultimately, the Court of Criminal Appeals said that is ineffective assistance, regardless of what was going on during the trial.
Yeah, what a great example. That's pretty blatant. But what about the victim in this case? Timothy Ferguson, 15 years old when he died. Egregious, had a lock on the refrigerator so he couldn't get food, was fed hot sauce, was chained to a bed. It was a cold room where he couldn't escape, he couldn't get out of. He was made to run physically until he could no more by the older brother who was acting in concert with the mother, Shanda Vander Ark. How does this affect victims of the one who was killed and all the people who cared and loved for him, knowing that she is asking for a new trial and might get it?
Well, I'll be surprised if she gets a new trial, but the lawyers are just doing their job to try to everything they can to get her a new trial. They're doing their job. Now, as far as the victim's viewpoint on this, it has to be torturous and it has to be difficult to hear that this trial might get redone. That would be a very sad day for them and a very difficult thing to put up with. It seems like the evidence was overwhelming.
Yeah, it does seem like the evidence was overwhelming. Of course, if the judge determines it's a new trial, it's exactly that, a new trial. It doesn't mean she goes free. It means that they would have to try the case again. Sam Bassett, thank you as always for your great information and expertise here on Court TV. Coming up next, you don't want to miss it, the final moments of today's hearing for Shanda Vander Ark. Will she get a new trial or not? Is coming up with Michael Ayala joining me. Stay tuned, Court TV Live.